In 1928, on a desert on the Paracas Peninsula of the southern coast of Peru, archaeologist Julio Tello unearthed a peculiar graveyard. Upon excavating the site, the experts discovered the remains of beings with the largest elongated skulls ever found on this planet to date. This discovery shocked the scientific community. Why? Well, because it challenged the recorded history of humans. It proved beyond any reasonable doubt that stories from mythology of beings with large heads did in fact exist, and these skulls proved it. The skulls in question became known as the Paracas Skulls and could yet turn out to be the single biggest piece of evidence ever uncovered regarding godlike beings or the Anunnaki. Wait till you hear this. It is astounding to think that these skulls keep popping up every now and again and completely challenge human understanding, and indeed evolution. They suggest evolution never took place on Earth because they haven't evolved from any other known creatures. And just like our own missing link hypothesis, the elongated skulls throw up yet another spanner in the works as to the accurate history of our teachings and the relation to mythological and biblical events to accurate historical records. It does suggest a dumbing down in society took place as to the existence of ancient history, and indeed the beings that were said to exist in the very distant past. The oldest elongated skulls found to date are found in Iraq, from which an overwhelming connection exists between the inhabitants of the Iraqi region and the elongated skull beings of the Americas. The DNA testing of the Iraqi skulls suggests they are either related to groups from Northern Europe or the Middle East, and exactly what these things are is unknown, but in-depth scientific research is needed to begin to understand the connection and how they came to be. It is foreseen, however, that these elongated skull beings are in fact the survivors and descendants of the Atlanteans, and by tracing their origin, it is entirely possible it may lead to the location of Atlantis. This might sound crazy, guys, but it might just be crazy enough to be true. DNA testing on an 18-month baby of the elongated skull beings suggests she had strawberry blonde hair, which, as you know, is not Native American. And get this, the DNA analysis showed that this baby had certain segments that did not match anything we know of. It shows that in fact the elongated skull beings are in fact not human. Doesn't that just blow your mind, or what? Native Americans, as you know, came to the Americas across the Bering Land Bridge from Asia. So think about this. Who would walk across Europe and the Middle East, then across Asia to get to America? Obviously, they reached the Americas by boat, which means they had the means of navigating the ocean and knew where they were going thousands of years before we even considered this possible by such a civilization. Of course, skeptics are fast to dismiss the validity of the elongated skulls as being scientific proof of pre-adamites. They have even went as far to claim that elongated skulls to be artificial, and to further complicate things, there does exist tribes that practice cranial deformation on their young. But the presence of a sagittal suture in the tribe people's practices and the lack of a sagittal suture on the ancient skulls suggests the modern tribes people are trying to recreate this shape. Probably because the elongated beings were highly knowledgeable and the head size would have been a sign of higher intelligence. So the attempted copying of this was to enhance the life of children to almost godlike status, but it is unclear if this was successful. It is a clear imitation, as this idea was obviously born of example. The Paracas elongated skulls are by DNA design and not forcibly assigned to the person, and this is further backed by baby skeleton remains where the skull is in fact already elongated. These beings were not human. They did not evolve here on Earth, or at least they are higher beings in which we are today. They are genetically varied from us significantly. We will leave it at that for now, guys. This was part 3, and of course we will further discuss this in part 4 of this mini-series. We have also been gathering information regarding German UFO advancements, so watch out for that one in the coming days. As you can tell, this information is gathered from the work and research of Brian Forrester over the past 10 years or so. He is single-handedly capturing our imagination, and his findings may just blow open the doors of silence and uncover a deeper, clearer outline of our civilization, and indeed the Atlantean civilization, who were no doubt affected by the Great Flood just like everything else. Make no mistake, the Great Flood is the key in all of this, guys. We have come this far, and though we may not have the answers for now, at least we have the questions. Just before we wrap things up here, guys, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to our friends at Finding UFO. Some of you may be aware that they had a long break from YouTube back in May of 2017 was their last video until they started posting again recently, much to everyone's surprise. The reason for the absence was due to Richard's ill health, and it is absolutely heartwarming to see that he is back posting content again. On behalf of the entire community, we just wanted to take a moment and welcome the Finding UFO channel back to YouTube, and we wish you all the very best going forward. Good luck, guys.
Please focus on what's called the foramen magnum, where your spinal column enters the bottom of your skull. Now, first of all, in a normal skull, there is what is called this sagittal suture in red. But it seems to be completely lacking in what we call the natural elongated skulls of Paracas. Also, the foramen magnum of a normal skull is located at the balance point near the center. And in the Paracas skulls, it's physically way to the back. That is genetic. Note here with this baby skull that the neck is at the very back. Very unusual. And we were very fortunate to have Mr. Eric von Daniken go through the DNA results recently, and he's completely fascinated. He visited our Paracas Museum and will be returning many times. Hi, this is Brian Forrester coming to you from Paracas in Peru, and this is DNA update of the Paracas number 3 in a series. I'm not sure how many there will be, probably 5 or 6 parts, but this is part 3, and this is looking at physical anomalies of the Paracas Elongated skulls. And the work is in this book, which will be available at the end of the video, or the email address. And this work is was done by Dr. Michael Alday, who is an American physician, Dr. Malcolm Warren, who is an American chiropractor, and Rick Woodward, who is a physical anthropologist. Now, this is what we call cranial deformation. You can tell the volume of the skull is that of a normal human, and the forehead and the back of the skull have been flattened. So this is what cranial deformation on the coast of Peru looks like. This, on the other hand, is what we call a natural Paracas skull. You can see the volume is greater than the previous skull I showed you, and the whole shape is much more complex than simple cranial deformation. And so we think this person was born with an elongated skull. Also, as you saw in the photos before, at the beginning of the video, the foramen magnum, which is where your spinal cord column, vertebrae enter the bottom of the skull, is positioned at a place of balance, the balance point, which is an obvious evolutionary thing. But the anomaly in the Paracas elongated skulls that we believe are natural, and even some with with headboarding, their foramen magnum, as you can see here, is at the back of the skull. So that is a genetic trait. You cannot change the position of the foramen magnum simply by binding a skull, because trying to do that, especially with the baby, you would wind up killing that person or that child. And so this is one of the genetic characteristics of what we call a natural elongated skull. Also, the suture lines. Here is the suture running across this way, but there is no sign of the sagittal suture whatsoever. And notice the curvature here, as if the two hemispheres are being represented, or the shaping was done by nature in order to have this dip inside of here. Also, the eye sockets are up to 50% larger than normal. And these bones in the back, these tiny bones here, are not in a normal human being. These are called Inca bones. They are found in the royal Inca people, but also clearly here in the Paracas as well. So that is another genetic characteristic, and that may in fact link the elongated skulls of Paracas, Peru, who died out 2,000 years ago, with the rise of the Inca culture. It's quite possible that the Inca and the Paracas shared ancestry. It's said in the Spanish Chronicles that the royal Inca people had reddish hair, and of course the Paracas people also had reddish hair. So that is your update for now.